when Isabella Martinez puts on a mask at Manhattan's most exclusive charity event. She's not looking for love, she's looking for survival. A former art restoration entrepreneur crushed by her brother's medical debts, she's desperate to find investors to rebuild her shattered life. Hey there, romance lovers. Tonight we dive into a world where every choice has a cost and every moment matters. Shall we begin? The crystal chandeliers cast dancing shadows across the ballroom floor as Isabella Martinez adjusted her black lace mask one final time. The Venetian-style disguise covered half her face, but couldn't hide the exhaustion in her dark eyes. 6 months ago, she'd been wearing designer gowns by choice, not necessity. Tonight, the borrowed emerald dress felt like a costume for a role she no longer wanted to play. Last chance to run? She whispered to her reflection in the ladies' room mirror. But running wasn't an option anymore. Not when her younger brother's medical bills were drowning them both. The Masquerade Ball was Manhattan's most exclusive charity event, where billionaires wrote 7-figure checks while sipping champagne that cost more than most people's rent. Isabella had one goal: find a wealthy patron interested in funding her art restoration business. Pride was a luxury she could no longer afford. She stepped into the ballroom, her heels clicking against marble floors that probably cost more than her apartment. The air thrummed with classical music and the low murmur of power conversations. Masked faces turned toward her, but she kept moving, searching for an opening, a moment of opportunity. You look like someone who doesn't belong here. The voice came from behind her, deep and slightly amused. Isabella turned to find a man in an impeccable black tuxedo, his silver mask covering the upper half of his face. What she could see was striking: a strong jawline, full lips curved in a knowing smile, and an aura of confidence that seemed to bend the very air around him. "That's quite an assumption," Isabella replied, lifting her chin. "Maybe I just don't want to belong here." He stepped closer, and she caught the scent of expensive cologne mixed with something darker, more complex, even more interesting. Most people would kill for an invitation to this circus. And you? Are you here to write a check and feel good about yourself? His laugh was rich, genuine, brutal honesty. "I like that." He extended his hand. "Dance with me." It wasn't a request. Isabella found herself accepting, allowing him to lead her onto the dance floor. His hand settled on her waist with practiced ease, and they moved together as if they'd done this 1,000 times before. "What's your story?" he asked as they swayed to the music. "Art dealer. Trust fund rebel. Undercover journalist. Does it matter?" Isabella's breath caught as he spun her, pulling her back against his chest. "We're all wearing masks tonight. Some masks hide more than others." His fingers traced the edge of her disguise, sending an unexpected shiver through her. "Yours is particularly beautiful." The song ended, but he didn't release her. The ballroom continued to spin around them, but Isabella felt suspended in this moment, caught between his silver mask and knowing smile. "I should go," she said, though she made no move to leave. Should and want are different things. His thumb brushed across her knuckles. "Stay. The night is young, and I have a feeling you're exactly what this evening needed." Isabella looked into his eyes, seeing something there that made her heart race and her instincts scream warnings in equal measure. She was here for business, for her brother, for survival. Not for whatever dangerous game this masked stranger was proposing. But when he leaned closer, his breath warm against her ear, and whispered, "Trust me for one night. Let me show you a world without consequences," she found herself nodding. What she didn't know was that the man behind the silver mask was Gabriel Sterling, CEO of Sterling Industries, and that this one night would shatter both their carefully constructed worlds in ways neither could imagine. The private balcony overlooked Central Park, 20 stories above the chaos of the city. Gabriel had led Isabella away from the crowded ballroom to this intimate space where the night air carried the scent of autumn and distant rain. "This is better," he said, loosening his bow tie. "I was starting to suffocate in there." Isabella gripped the marble railing, trying to steady herself. The champagne, the dancing, his intoxicating present sight was all too much. "You still haven't told me your name," Neither of you. Gabriel moved beside her, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his body. Maybe that's better. Names come with histories, expectations, disappointments, spoken like someone with regrets. Aren't we all carrying those? Gabriel studied her profile in the moonlight. You have the look of someone who's lost something important. Isabella's laugh was bitter. More like everything important. The words slipped out before she could stop them, the champagne and his penetrating gaze breaking down her defenses. Tell me, why should I trust a stranger? Because sometimes strangers are the only ones who can handle the truth. Gabriel's hand covered hers on the railing. I won't judge you. God knows I'm not in a position to judge anyone. Isabella turned to face him fully. Searching his eyes behind the silver mask, there was pain there, carefully hidden but unmistakable. I used to run an art restoration company. Small, but successful. Then my brother got sick. Cancer. The treatments weren't covered by insurance, so I mortgaged everything. Used all my savings. When he needed an experimental treatment, I took out loans against the business. And he died anyway. The words came out flat, empty. 3 months ago, the debts buried me. I lost the company, my apartment, everything. I'm here tonight because I thought I could find someone to invest in a new venture. Pathetic, right? Gabriel was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. I'm sorry. For your brother. For all of it, your turn. Isabella wiped away a tear that had escaped despite her best efforts. What's your damage? Gabriel removed his mask slowly, revealing sharp cheekbones and eyes the color of storm clouds. He was even more devastatingly handsome than she'd imagined. But there was something haunted in his expression. I built an empire on lies, he said simply. Convinced everyone, including myself, that I was untouchable. But empires fall, especially when they're built on shifting sand. That's cryptic. My company is dying. Hemorrhaging money faster than I can count it. In 4 weeks, 800 people will lose their jobs because I was too arrogant to admit I was in over my head. Gabriel gripped the railing until his knuckles went white. I'm Gabriel Sterling, and I'm about to lose everything. Isabella's breath caught. Sterling, in distress, read about their stock troubles in the financial section. The tech giant, former tech giant. Gabriel's smile was self-deprecating. Present-day house of cards waiting for the wind to blow. They stood in silence. 2 broken people sharing the weight of their failures. The city sparkled below them, indifferent to their pain. We're quite a pair, Isabella said finally. The failed entrepreneur and the falling king. Maybe that's why this feels right. Gabriel turned to face her, his hand cupping her cheek. No pretense, no lies. Just 2 people who understand what it means to lose everything. Before Isabella could respond, Gabriel's lips were on hers. The kiss was desperate, hungry, filled with the pain and longing they'd both been carrying. She melted into him, her hands fisting in his shirt. Pulling him closer when they broke apart, both were breathing hard. I should go, Isabella whispered. Though her body betrayed her words by moving closer to his, don't. Not yet. Gabriel's forehead rested against hers. I know this is crazy, but I feel like you're the first real thing that's happened to me in years. Gabriel, come home with me. One night, no promises, no expectations. Just us and whatever this is between us. Isabella knew she should walk away. Getting involved with a man whose world was collapsing was the last thing she needed. But looking into his eyes, seeing her own pain reflected there, she found herself nodding. They left the masquerade ball together, masks discarded, stepping into the night air, hand in hand. Neither spoke during the ride to his penthouse. The tension between them, thick and electric. But as Gabriel's driver pulled up to the gleaming tower that housed Sterling Industries, Isabella saw something that made her blood freeze. Through the lobby windows, she glimpsed a man in a dark suit watching them arrive, even from a distance. She recognized him, Marcus Webb, the private investigator who had been hounding her about her brother's medical debts. The same man who had threatened to destroy what was left of her reputation if she didn't pay what she owed. Gabriel was already out of the car, extending his hand to help her. He hadn't seen Webb, didn't know the danger, but Isabella did, and she realized with growing horror that this night, which had felt like salvation, might actually be the trap that destroyed them both. Gabriel's penthouse occupied the entire top floor of Sterling Tower, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of Manhattan that took Isabella's breath away. But she couldn't shake the image of Marcus Webb in the lobby, couldn't ignore the warning bells screaming in her head. Drink? Gabriel moved to an impressive bar cart, his movements fluid despite the tension radiating from his shoulders. Gabriel, I need to tell you something. Isabella's voice was tight with anxiety. There was a man in the lobby. Watching us? Gabriel paused, a crystal decanter halfway to 2 glasses. Watching us how? Like he was waiting. I think I'm in trouble. More trouble than I told you about. Gabriel set down the decanter and crossed to her, his expression serious. What kind of trouble? Isabella sank onto his leather couch, the weight of her secrets pressing down on her. My brother's medical bills. The experimental treatment I mentioned? It was offered by a private clinic with connections to some very dangerous people. When I couldn't pay, they didn't just take my assets. They want me to work off the debt. What kind of work? Industrial espionage. Corporate sabotage. They want me to use my restoration business as a front to get close to wealthy clients. Gather information, steal trade secrets. Isabella's hands shook as she spoke. I've been refusing, but they're getting more insistent. More threatening? Gabriel was quiet for a long moment, processing this revelation. When he spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. How much do you owe? $2.7 million? Gabriel whistled low. That's substantial. I know how this looks. I know what you must be thinking. Isabella stood abruptly, pacing to the window. You probably think I targeted you tonight, that this was all some elaborate setup. Did you? The question hit her like a physical blow. She spun around to face him, tears blurring her vision. No, God, no. I went to that ball hoping to find legitimate investors. I had no idea who you were until you told me. This, whatever this is between us, it's real. Gabriel studied her for a long moment, then moved to the window beside her. I believe you. You do? I'm a good judge of character. It's one of the few skills that serve me well in business. Gabriel's hand found hers. The way you kissed me, the way you're looking at me now, you can't fake that kind of connection. Relief flooded through Isabella, so intense it left her dizzy. So what do? We figure this out together. Gabriel's jaw tightened with determination. These people you owe money to, they have a name? The Meridian Group. They operate through shell companies, but their main business is high-end medical financing with strings attached. Gabriel's expression darkened. I know Meridian. They approached Sterling Industries last year about a partnership, financing medical tech research in exchange for exclusive licensing rights. I turned them down because something felt off. What kind of off? Their terms were too generous. Nobody gives away that much money without expecting massive returns. Gabriel moved to his desk. Pulling up files on his computer, I had my legal team investigate. Meridian has connections to money laundering, extortion, corporate espionage. They're not just a medical financing company, Isabella. They're criminals with excellent lawyers. Isabella felt the blood drain from her face. Then I'm in even deeper trouble than I thought. We're in trouble. Gabriel's voice was firm. Because if they're watching you, and you're here with me, then they know about my company's financial problems. That makes me a target too. As if summoned by his words, Gabriel's phone rang. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize. Don't answer it, Isabella whispered. But Gabriel was already accepting the call. Gabriel Sterling. Mr. Sterling. My name is Marcus Webb. I represent certain interested parties who would like to meet with you. Tonight, Gabriel's eyes met Isabella's, and she nodded grimly. It was Webb. I'm not interested in meetings, Mr. Webb. I think you will be when you understand what's at stake. Your company is hemorrhaging money, Mr. Sterling. Your stock price is in free fall. But we have a solution that could save Sterling Industries and solve another problem as well. What kind of solution? The woman you're with tonight? Ms. Martinez owes my clients a considerable sum. We're prepared to forgive her debt entirely in exchange for a small favor from you. Gabriel's grip on the phone tightened. What favor? Access to your company's proprietary technology, specifically your encryption algorithms and security protocols. Information that would be very valuable to the right buyers. You want me to commit corporate espionage against my own company? We prefer to think of it as a mutually beneficial arrangement. You get the investment capital to save Sterling Industries. Ms. Martinez gets her freedom, and everyone wins. Gabriel looked at Isabella, seeing the fear and shame warring in her expression. And if I refuse? Then Ms. Martinez will face the consequences of her debts, and your company will collapse within the month. We're prepared to accelerate that timeline if necessary. The line went dead. Gabriel set down his phone, his mind racing. They have us cornered. I'm so sorry. Isabella's voice broke. I never meant for this to happen. I never meant to drag you into my mess. Hey! Gabriel pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. This isn't your fault. These people prey on desperation, on love. You did what any sister would do, but now they want to destroy your company. My company is already destroyed. The question is whether we're going to let them win. Isabella pulled back to look at him. What are you saying? Gabriel's expression was hard, determined. I'm saying that maybe it's time to stop running from our problems and start fighting back. But even as he spoke the words, Gabriel knew they were walking into something far more dangerous than either of them had imagined. And in the reflection of his windows, he caught sight of movement on the building across the street. They were being watched. The abandoned warehouse in Queens smelled of rust and broken dreams. Isabella clutched Gabriel's hand as they walked through the maze of shipping containers, their footsteps echoing in the cavernous space. 3 days had passed since Webb's phone call, 3 days of planning and preparation for this moment. You sure about this? Gabriel whispered as they approached the meeting point. As sure as I can be about. Kate, a plan that could get us both killed. Gabriel had insisted on coming, despite Isabella's protests. The plan was simple in concept, deadly in execution. They would appear to cooperate with Meridian while secretly gathering evidence of their criminal activities. Gabriel's security team would be monitoring from a distance. Ready to move if things went wrong, Marcus Webb emerged from the shadows. Flanked by 2 men in expensive suits who looked more like executioners than accountants, Webb himself was unremarkably medium height, graying hair, the kind of face you'd forget in a crowd. But his eyes held a cold calculation that made Isabella's skin crawl. Ms. Martinez. Mr. Sterling, thank you for coming. Let's get this over with, Gabriel said, his voice steady despite the tension radiating from his body. Straight to business. I admire that. Webb gestured to a table set up between the containers. On it lay a tablet and several documents. The terms are simple. Mr. Sterling provides us with access to his company's security protocols. Ms. Martinez's debt is forgiven, and Sterling Industries receives an immediate capital infusion of $50 million. Gabriel picked up one of the documents, scanning it quickly. This isn't just access to security protocols. You want source code, client lists, proprietary algorithms. You're asking me to hand over everything that makes my company valuable. Everything that made your company valuable, Webb corrected. At current market rates, Sterling Industries is worth less than its outstanding debt. We're offering you a chance to rebuild. Isabella watched Gabriel's face, seeing the war between desperation and integrity playing out behind his eyes. She knew how much his company meant to him, how devastating its loss would be. There's something else, Webb continued. Ms. Martinez has been more useful than she's admitted. Haven't you, Isabella? Isabella's blood turned to ice. What are you talking about? Webb smiled, and it was like watching a snake prepare to strike. Show him the photographs. One of Webb's men placed a manila envelope on the table. Gabriel opened it, his expression shifting from confusion to horror to betrayal as he flipped through the contents. The photographs showed Isabella at various locations over the past month. entering the offices of Gabriel's competitors, meeting with unknown men in expensive suits, accepting envelopes of cash. The final photo showed her at Sterling Tower 3 days before the Masquerade ball, clearly scoping the building. "You've been working for them all along." Gabriel's voice was flat, empty of emotion. "The ball, meeting me, all of it was planned." "No." Isabella reached for him, but he stepped back. "Gabriel, I can explain. Can you?" "Because these photos tell a pretty clear story." Isabella's mind raced, trying to piece together how Webb could have manufactured such convincing evidence. Then the horrible truth hit her. "The debts," she whispered. "They were never about my brother's medical bills, were they? You've been setting this up for months, maybe years." Webb's smile widened. "Very good, Ms. Martinez. Your brother did die. That part was true. But his medical expenses were covered by insurance. We simply waited for grief to make you vulnerable, then constructed a debt that never existed." The betrayal hit Isabella like a physical blow. "You used my brother's death. We use whatever tools are necessary. Your genuine grief, your desperation, it made you the perfect unwitting agent. Every meeting you attended, every conversation you had, you were gathering intelligence without even knowing it." Gabriel stared at Isabella with a mixture of pain and disgust that cut deeper than any knife. "So what was I?" "Another target." "The biggest target," Webb confirmed. "Sterling Industry Security Systems protect some very sensitive information. Government contracts, defense protocols, financial data that could be worth hundreds of millions on the right markets." Isabella felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. Everything she thought she knew about her situation, about her choices, had been a lie. But looking at Gabriel's face, she realized the truth no longer mattered. He would never trust her again. "I'll do it." Gabriel's voice was harsh. "I'll give you what you want, Gabriel." "No, shut up, Isabella. You've done enough." Webb clapped his hands together. "Excellent. If you'll just sign these documents and provide the access codes." The sound of Gabriel's laughter cut through the warehouse like broken glass. "You really think I'd come here unprepared? You'd think I'd trust a woman who's been lying to me from the moment we met?" Isabella's heart sank as understanding dawned. Gabriel wasn't just rejecting her. He was playing his own game. "The device you gave me to access our servers," Gabriel continued, pulling a small black box from his pocket. "My security team has been monitoring every signal it sends. Every attempt to breach our systems has been traced back to your organization." Webb's expression shifted from confidence to concern. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Gabriel smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Right now, the FBI has teams moving on 6 Meridian Group locations. Your financial records, your client lists, your entire operation is being dismantled as we speak." The warehouse erupted into chaos. Webb shouted orders to his men, who drew weapons with practiced efficiency. Gabriel grabbed Isabella's hand, pulling her behind a shipping container as gunshots rang out. "You used me," Isabella gasped as they crouched in the shadows. "Just like they did." Gabriel's eyes were cold, distant. "I used the situation. There's a difference." "Is there? You let me think you cared about me? You let me fall in love with you while you were planning to betray everyone?" For just a moment, Gabriel's mask slipped. Isabella saw pain flash across his face, raw and genuine. But then it was gone, replaced by the same cold calculation she'd seen in Webb's eyes. Love. Gabriel's laugh was bitter. "You're a criminal, Isabella. A con artist who used a dead brother to manipulate people's emotions. Whatever I felt for you died the moment I saw those photographs." The words hit Isabella like physical blows. But before she could respond, Webb's voice cut through the gunfire. "Enough. Ms. Martinez, step away from Mr. Sterling, or I'll put a bullet in his head right now." Isabella looked at Gabriel, seeing her own desperation reflected in his eyes. They were trapped, betrayed by everyone, including each other. With no way out and nowhere to run, but as Webb's men closed in around them, Isabella made a decision that would either save them both or destroy them forever. Isabella stepped out from behind the shipping container, her hands raised in surrender. Gabriel's sharp intake of breath told her everything she needed to know. He thought she was abandoning him, choosing her own survival over his. He was wrong. "I'll give you what you really want," she called out to Webb, her voice steady despite the terror coursing through her veins. Not Gabriel's company's secrets. Something much more valuable. Webb kept his gun trained on Gabriel, but tilted his head with interest. "I'm listening. Vincent Meridian himself, your boss. The man who's been pulling the strings while you do his dirty work." Webb's composure cracked for the first time. "You don't know what you're talking about, don't I?" Isabella took another step forward. "Did you really think I spent all those months meeting with your people without learning anything? I know about the offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. I know about the senator you've been bribing to bury investigations. Most importantly, I know where Meridian will be tomorrow night." Gabriel stared at her, confusion replacing the cold hatred in his eyes. Behind Webb, his men shifted nervously. "The charity auction at the Met," Isabella continued. "Private room, top floor. Meridian thinks he's untouchable because he's never been directly connected to your operations. But I have recordings, photographs, documentation of every meeting where he gave direct orders." Webb's gun hand wavered. "You're lying, am I?" "Check your phone, Marcus. Check the message that just arrived." With his free hand, Webb pulled out his phone. His face went pale as he read whatever was on the screen. "That's just a sample," Isabella said. "Audio of Vincent ordering you to eliminate witnesses. Photos of him at the site where my brother's medical records were falsified. Financial records showing payments from his personal account to yours." Gabriel was beginning to understand. During those 3 days of planning, Isabella hadn't been sitting idle. While he'd been coordinating with the FBI, she'd been building her own trap. "Here's my offer," Isabella said. "You let us walk away, and I'll give you everything I have on Vincent. Enough evidence to save yourself by throwing him under the bus, or you can kill us both, and when the FBI finds our bodies, they'll also find the dead man's switch I set up. Every piece of evidence goes public. You all go down together." The warehouse fell silent, except for the distant sound of sirens growing closer. Gabriel realized that Isabella had been counting on his FBI contacts arriving. Using the timing to force Webb into an impossible choice, Webb's gun hand was shaking now. "You think you're so smart? But you're forgetting one thing." "What's that?" "Vincent Meridian doesn't leave loose ends." The gunshot was deafeningly loud in the enclosed space. But instead of Isabella or Gabriel falling, one of Webb's own men dropped to the ground. Vincent Meridian stepped out of the shadows, a smoking gun in his hand and a cold smile on his lips. "Marcus always was too emotional for this business," Meridian said conversationally. "Too willing to negotiate when he should have simply eliminated the problem." Isabella's blood turned to ice. She'd been prepared for Webb's desperation, but not for Meridian himself to appear. "Vincent?" Gabriel's voice was carefully controlled. "I assume you're here to clean up your operations. Something like that?" Meridian was an elegant man in his 60s, with silver hair and the bearing of someone accustomed to absolute power. "Though I must say, Miss Martinez, I'm impressed. You've been more resourceful than I anticipated." "Let me guess," Isabella said. "This was all part of your plan too?" "Not all of it. Your genuine feelings for Mr. Sterling were an unexpected complication. Love makes people unpredictable, dangerous." Meridian studied them both with clinical interest. "But ultimately useful. The FBI raids on my lower-level operations will satisfy their need for arrests while leaving my core business untouched." Gabriel stepped closer to Isabella, and she realized that whatever anger he'd felt toward her was gone, replaced by a protective instinct that made her heart ache. "So what now?" Gabriel asked. "You kill us and disappear?" "Kill you. Mr. Sterling, you misunderstand my business model entirely." Meridian's smile was reptilian. "Dead people can't generate revenue. You're both going to work for me? Permanently." The sirens were getting closer, but not close enough. "Isabella," Gabriel said quietly, "the device in my pocket. The one I said was monitoring their signals." "What about it?" "It's not just monitoring. It's a locator beacon. The FBI isn't raiding random Meridian sites. They're coming here. Meridian's expression darkened. How long? Based on the siren volume, I'd say 2 minutes. Maybe less. For a moment, Isabella thought they might actually survive this. Then, Meridian raised his gun, pointing it directly at Gabriel's chest. Then we don't have time for negotiations. Isabella moved without thinking, throwing herself between Meridian and Gabriel. The gunshot echoed through the warehouse, and she felt the bullet tear through her shoulder, spinning her around. She hit the concrete hard, her vision blurring with pain and shock. Isabella. Gabriel's voice seemed to come from very far away. How romantic, Meridian said. She took a bullet for you, Mr. Sterling. Now you can watch her bleed out while we wait for my extraction team. But Gabriel wasn't listening to Meridian anymore. He was kneeling beside Isabella, pressing his hands against her wound to stop the bleeding. Why? He whispered. After everything I said to you, why would you? Because I love you, Isabella gasped. Real love. Not the fake kind they tried to create. And because you deserved to know the truth? What truth? I never betrayed you. Those photos, those meetings, Webb, was right that I attended them. But I was trying to gather evidence against Meridian, not help him. Isabella's voice was getting weaker. I've been working with the FBI for 2 months. Ever since I realized what they'd done to my brother, Gabriel stared at her, understanding flooding his features. You've been undercover this whole time. The Masquerade ball was supposed to be my last mission. Then I met you, and everything changed. Isabella managed a weak smile. I fell in love with you for real, Gabriel. And that terrified them more than any evidence I could gather. The warehouse doors burst open, flooding the space with light and armed FBI agents. Meridian dropped his gun, raising his hands in surrender with the calm resignation of a man who had contingency plans for every scenario. But Isabella barely registered the arrests. The shouted commands, the chaos of law enforcement securing the scene, her world had narrowed to Gabriel's face above her, to the fierce tenderness in his eyes. Don't you dare die on me, he said, his voice breaking. Not now. Not when I finally understand. Understand what? That some things are worth the risk. That some people are worth fighting for. Gabriel's hand found hers, squeezing gently. That love isn't always a weakness sometimes. It's the only strength that matters. The paramedics arrived, pushing Gabriel aside as they worked on Isabella's wound. As they lifted her onto a stretcher, she caught sight of her reflection in a broken piece of mirror lying on the warehouse floor. She looked like she'd been through a war. In many ways, she had. 6 months later, Isabella stood in the renovated gallery space that would house her new art restoration business. Her left arm was still weak from the gunshot, but the doctors said it would regain full strength with time. Like everything else in her life, she was learning to be patient with the healing process. Gabriel appeared in the doorway, carrying 2 cups of coffee and wearing the casual smile that never failed to make her heart skip. How does it feel? He asked, handing her a cup. Like coming back to life, Isabella said honestly. What about you? Any regrets about walking away from Sterling Industries? Gabriel had surprised everyone by selling his company to a competitor and using the proceeds to fund a foundation focused on medical research and debt relief. It wasn't the empire he'd once commanded, but it was honest work that let him sleep at night. None, Gabriel said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. I was so busy building something that looked impressive from the outside, I forgot to build something that felt meaningful from the inside. Isabella leaned back against his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. We make quite a pair. The fallen king and the reformed spy. Former spy, Gabriel corrected. Current art restorer and full-time love of my life. That's quite a job description. It's the most important job in the world, outside the gallery windows. New York City hummed with its usual energy. People were falling in love, losing everything, starting over, making mistakes, finding redemption. The same eternal dance of hope and heartbreak that had brought Gabriel and Isabella. Together, they had learned that love wasn't about perfection or easy answers. It was about choosing to trust someone with your broken pieces, knowing they might cut themselves on the sharp edges. It was about building something real from the ruins of everything that had come before. Isabella turned in Gabriel's arms, meeting his eyes with a smile that held all the promise of their uncertain but hopeful future. "So what now?" she asked. "Now we write our own story," Gabriel said, leaning down to kiss her. One honest page at a time. As their lips met, Isabella thought she could finally see past the masks they'd worn, past the lies they'd told themselves, to something true and lasting and worth every risk they'd taken to find it. The end.